Good morning. How are you this morning? It's nice to have you here, whether you are here in person at the moment or watching later. Whoops, hold on one second. Okay. So I don't see any questions. I'd like to really start with questions if possible, because I know that people have questions, but they might be too shy to answer to ask, or maybe they feel like, oh, they should know more, or maybe they feel like, oh, it's not that important, whatever. But if you have a question, you're always welcome to put it in the chat and we can discuss it, or you can send us an email. All of our contact is below in the description box. Okay. All right. So let's begin by just settling in, getting mind and body in the same place. Pensando samgarab shiri sempam hakarajibani shuna susunapnata tengesas. Katana manam naso Omichigi Kipo Jane, to some Sangi Quigging over near and some children and soon to Sepa. So wait a minute, shut now so what? All right. Hey, Tim. So we're going to start with our bodhicitta motivation. So bodhicitta is a Sanskrit word. Bodhi means awakened or enlightened, and chitta means the mind and heart together. So that's the etymology. But what it means is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So it's born from compassion when we see the suffering of others, and wisdom when we understand the cause of suffering. So if we understand those teachings, then please generate bodhicitta for the bodhicitta motivation for the time that we'll be spending together this morning. Otherwise, at least if you could have the motivation that um, this session will benefit not only yourself, but others as well. All right. So someone asked a few weeks ago about, they wanted me to talk about compassion fatigue. So that's what I'm going to discuss this morning. So there are a few points with compassion fatigue from the Buddhist perspective. So, for those of you who might not be entirely familiar with what compassion fatigue even means, it is when we feel like we have a lot of compassion for others in whatever capacity, maybe, in our private life, in our work life, or about strangers in the world that we just hear about who are suffering. And what happens is that can make us feel very worn out. Yeah, make us feel really sad and depressed, and we lose our energy and we lose our um, capacity really to have strong compassion for others. So that's what we'll be discussing this morning. Um, so the first thing that I would say about that, no matter what, is that if you find yourself in that situation, then rest, if possible. Take care of yourself, right? Because if we wreck ourselves or make ourselves sick, um, either physically or mentally, we're not going to really be able to help others. So it's very important to take care of yourself. And this leads to a common misunderstanding of compassion, where one can feel like they need to be a martyr, right? One can feel like um, we shouldn't have compassion for ourselves, and this is patently untrue. Okay. It is very important, even in the traditional teachings, to have compassion for yourself and to know your own limits. Even Shantideva, in his classic text on compassion on on Bodhicitta, called The Way of the Bodhisattva, even he discusses that. We have to know where we are. We have to know how much we can do. We have to know what we are ready for and what we're not ready for, right? So it's never, a good idea to become a martyr. Or to allow people to just walk all over you, right? So a lot of times people make that mistake when we um, are trying to develop compassion, try to make our compassion stronger. We can mix it up with not respecting ourselves and not being kind to ourselves and not having any boundaries. This is unwise. Okay, this is what's called idiot compassion, right? There's wise compassion and there's idiot compassion. So idiot compassion is like, you know, the parents giving their kids junk food all day because that's what the kids want and they may feel like they're being nice to them. Or yeah, just allowing someone to abuse you because you feel like you're trying to be a nice person, right? This is not wise. Excuse me. So wise compassion is we're mixing compassion and wisdom, or we're joining compassion and wisdom, right? It's two sides of the same coin. Compassion without wisdom becomes this type of idiot compassion that I just described. Um, and wisdom without compassion becomes being quite smart about things, but not having any compassion. So, a good example of that is, brilliant scientists working on the best kind of weapon to kill the most people, right? This sort of thing is that person needs to have a lot of intelligence, but they don't have any compassion. So that's one type of understanding that we need to be aware of. Yeah. We need to have compassion for ourselves and we need to have wise compassion. It needs to be mixed with wisdom, which is those things I mentioned, right? Knowing our boundaries, not being a martyr, etc. Okay. So the main thing when we get compassion fatigue is that we are not seeing things properly. Okay. So what I mean by that is we're not seeing the empty nature of phenomena. So that might sound a little bit hard to relate to, but when I was in my second retreat, I was really wondering how bodhisattvas do it because the idea behind a bodhisattva is, right, they take the bodhisattva vow and then that vow is to continue to return to cyclic existence in order to benefit all beings, okay? And this is not an easy thing. And often, you know, the beings that they're trying to help are really, really difficult. They are abusing them, they are not grateful, they refuse to take good advice and things like that, right? Um, and these beings they have the capacity to not return to samsara to benefit beings. They have the capacity to just hang out in a blissful state, right? For forever, I guess, right? But they choose out of their compassion, out of their bodhicitta, to continue to return to cyclic existence to benefit beings. So that means they have a human body with all of its pains and aches and aging and death and difficulties, right? They have this really refined mind and heart, and they have to spend their time with ghouls and savages like us, right? Very rough, people, childish, etc. Okay. This is not easy for them. Or it doesn't seem easy from my perspective as an unenlightened being, anyway. So I asked Rinpoche, how do they do it, right? How do they find the energy? How do they not get discouraged, you know, coming again and again and again? And he said, that's because they have realized emptiness. They understand the empty nature of all things. Yeah. So what does that mean? When we talk about emptiness, we're talking about it's we're talking about the dreamlike illusory nature of all things. It doesn't mean that things don't exist. It means that they don't exist in the way that we perceive them. Okay. So if I take something like this this lid, it's not a good example. You pick something a little more complicated. Uh if I take something like this case for my AirPods, okay? Um, without examining it, right? I make a lot of assumptions about it, to sort of just unthinking assumptions. I assume that it is solid. I assume that it is permanent, that it exists independently. Okay, these are the three kind of base main things. All right, that's like without thinking about it. Of course, if I think about it for even a short period of time, I know that this is something that is not permanent. If I throw it in the street and somebody runs over it, it will be crushed. If I throw it in a very hot fire, it will melt. If I leave it in the elements for 100 years, or God knows how long it would take this thing to decompose. But anyway, eventually it turns into something else. Okay. So it's not permanent. Um, it's not solid. It feels solid, you know, I can hit the table with it. It sounds solid, but it's not solid. Yeah. And what do I mean? Well, science, right? It's made of molecules and atoms and everything kind of moving constantly, and it's quantum physics says it's mostly space and light. So, but that's how it is, right? That's how it is. But we don't perceive it that way. So it's the same idea when we talk about emptiness. Emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. It doesn't mean voidness. It means empty of inherent existence. That's what it means. Okay, so it doesn't mean that this doesn't exist. It exists, but it doesn't exist as a um, permanent, uh, solid, eternal, unchanging thing. All right, like we perceive it to be. It also has parts, right? It has the lid, it has the charging thing, it has two of these diddly doos. Okay. Has the top, a bottom, and two sides. It has I don't know what that is, has whatever that is. It's got a charging port and little lights inside. And if I took it apart, there'd be a bunch of other parts in there, right? So it's not independently existing. That's the other thing I think I forgot to mention. So independently existing means um, we perceive things as just coming from nowhere, right? As just sort of popping out of thin air. Of course, the moment we start to think about it, we realize that's not true. But our sort of instinctive response to all phenomena is that we just feel like, oh, it has no causes and conditions. That's the thing. This case and this object had almost infinite causes and conditions. Yeah. It was designed by someone. It was thought up by someone, designed by someone, created by someone, shipped by someone, sold by someone, bought by someone. And each of those things is also made of parts, impermanent, m- um, you know, constantly changing in a constant state of flux. All these things where we are perceiving the world as really solid, really kind of static, right? Uh, and we get very sort of convinced by that. And then we become surprised when things are impermanent, for example, right? Um, so that's why we emphasize the teachings on impermanence also, because understanding impermanence is not at all the same as understanding emptiness, but it is a kind of door into that. It's a way to kind of open our mind to that idea, right? So just the notion of everything being impermanent, to really contemplate that, to notice that all the time, can sort of start to loosen up this notion of solidity that we have, okay, about every excuse me, about everything. Pardon me. So what Rinpoche said to my question about how do the bodhisattvas do it, he said because they see the emptiness nature of everything, they don't get caught up in the other person's story or situation. So if we do that, because we take everything as solid and true and permanent, etc., we'll get very worn out. We'll get very tired. So it's important when we are trying to practice compassion or have compassion for whomever, um, it's important that we try to do that while seeing the emptiness nature of all things, impermanent, illusory, dreamlike. Buddha had this whole, pardon me, this whole list of um, of things that illustrated um, how things are illusory, sort of examples. So this, like everything is like a mirage, a dream. Um, what else did he say? Um, um, I can't remember now. The other, like bubble in a stream, things like that. Yeah. So how do we do that? How do we have compassion for others and maintain this view? So I try to understand what that was, and I try to do that, but I felt like it felt a little cold to me as someone trying to practice that, because I didn't, I didn't have the like emotional involvement that I might have had otherwise, right? So like if someone is crying, for example, and their story is very sad, we might also start to cry, right? This kind of thing where we get caught up in their story. Okay. So um, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. But it will exhaust us. If there's anything wrong with that, I guess. There's nothing morally wrong with that, but it's not as skillful as trying to have compassion with while maintaining the view of emptiness, because we will get because we will get worn out, we will get tired. Okay. um and if we get tired, like I said before, like we're not going to be as useful to others or to ourselves. So it's trying to do this, trying to be aware of that in whatever situation arose where I wanted to have compassion for someone. And I didn't feel this kind of simultaneous sadness with whatever they were going through. So it felt a little cold to me. So I brought this problem to our other teacher, Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, asking him about that. And what he asked me in return was, did you do the same things that you would have done otherwise, like before you tried to practice compassion with the view of emptiness? And I said, yeah, I did exactly the same things, sitting down, giving someone time, talking to them, seeing if I could help them, um, trying to understand them, etc. And he said, okay, so how did you feel afterwards? And I said, I felt fine. I felt okay. He said, how was your energy? And I said, it was good. My energy was really good. And he said, that's the point, right? That's the point, as I just described. So this practice can really help us avoid getting compassion fatigue in the first place, right? Because we are maintaining a wider view, right? We're maintaining a kind of zoomed out um, view of things. Okay, we're not wrapped up, yeah, in the story, and we can do this really with our own life and how we are seeing things. I'm someone, and I venture to say a lot of you are as well, not everyone, but I'm someone who has a tendency to take things very seriously, right? And um, think every single thing is very important and consequential. And, there's a lot of tension, yeah, in that view. There's a lot of suffering, really. It's not great suffering, but there is suffering in that approach of holding tightly and being worried and trying to make sure that everything's okay and making a lot of things important that are not necessarily important. So even with ourselves, if we can just take a wider view, kind of, bring the camera up so we can sort of see this wider view, right? Is this as important as I think it is? Do I really need to, you know, do XYZ? Is it really going to be a disaster if I don't do XYZ? This kind of thing. Yeah. It's not, very profound, but it will help us to relax, have a more open mind, right? A wider view. Having a wider view is always going to be better for us. Yeah. So to practice this, we have to first understand what this view actually is. And my little, Reader's Digest explanation here is not even close to being adequate. So we should really study the teachings, receive teachings, read books, and all of that to try to understand this concept in the first place. All right. Then the practice is um, maintaining that view, not getting caught up with whatever is happening, whatever the suffering is of an individual, ourselves, or a group as a whole. Yeah. We have that ache for sure in our heart that comes from true compassion. We see the suffering, and this deep desire arises that they be free of this suffering. That's compassion. We want them to be happy. We want them to be free of suffering. Okay. That's going to be there. But if we maintain our mind in a state of openness, with the understanding of emptiness, we are going to be able to be a lot more present for them, even if it might sound the opposite. We'll be able to maintain this deep sense of presence, because often what happens when we are having compassion for someone else is we are bringing our own story into it, right? Oh, this reminds me when my dad did XYZ, for example, or what have you, right? So we're kind of injecting ourselves into the situation. And sometimes that's helpful, mostly it's not helpful. And uh, if we have this wider view, then that won't happen. So at least that won't happen so intensely that we're kind of not, we're sort of half present for them, right? Because half of our awareness is on ourselves. Okay, so that's one thing. And it's a practice, right? So we're not going to get it right every time. We're not going to get it right in the beginning, but we want to try. Yeah, we want to at least try. Um, and for example, if you uh, know or become familiar with the teachings on what's called the six perfections or the six paramitas, that whole teaching is really about that. The paramita is Paramita. All right. And you can look it up on Rigpa Wiki um, to get a more detailed explanation of that, or you can look back through my videos. I have a series on the six perfections where I think I cover one each day, something like that. The thing with that is you have this kind of generosity, moral discipline, patience, and so forth, right? These kind of basic things that are considered uh, moral actions, okay, that are very common. Then the last two are uh, concentration, just means like meditation, and wisdom, which means approaching this with emptiness. So we try to have patience with wisdom, moral discipline with wisdom, generosity with wisdom, etc. Okay. And then we just try. We just try to do that when you're thinking about the suffering of these people being attacked by ICE, for example, or when you're contemplating the fact that someone you love has lost their spouse and they're grieving, this kind of thing, whatever it is, you can apply these kind of teachings and then see for yourself, ask yourself the questions that Jigme Rinpoche asked me, you know, did you do the same things? How did you feel? You know, how is your energy level doing it that way versus the way that you are used to doing it? So the last point about this that I will say is um, we're meant to have compassion for ultimately, okay? We're meant to have compassion for all beings without exception. So that includes, certain politicians that we might think are very bad. That includes somebody in our personal life who really hurt us. That includes murderers and so forth. Every single being, humans, animals, all beings in the other realms, all beings without exception throughout cyclic existence. If we're doing that, we, in a sense, need to, I was going to say forget ourselves, but it's not forgetting ourselves. It's just putting others first. Yeah. And this idea of compassion fatigue is, it's just kind of self-centered. Yeah. It's self-focused. I really prefer to use that terminology, self-focused over self-centered, because self-centered has so much judgment on it, right? But self-focused doesn't. Self-focused is more just a practical thing of like, oh, I'm focusing on myself more than I'm focusing on others. Yeah. And this is normal. It's completely normal. Yeah. Um, it's a habit. It's a super strong habit that we have had since beginningless time. Okay. But compassion fatigue is in that realm of being self-focused. Yeah. So that's just another point that I wanted to bring up in this whole um, concept of what is compassion fatigue and how do we work with compassion fatigue? How do we prevent compassion fatigue? That's really what we want to focus on. Because if we can prevent it through these various practices and understanding, then we won't have it, right? And then there'll be nothing to do with because we don't have compassion fatigue. So, we have to always find balance between trying to move forward, trying to, progress on this path, and also trying to um, recognize, pardon me, recognize our own limits and, you know, respecting our limits and having compassion for ourselves. Yeah. So that I can't tell you. There isn't a one size fits all situation for everybody. There isn't even a one size fits all for yourself. Yeah. You just have to approach every situation, think about it, observe, and maybe I need a little more compassion here, maybe I need to give a little more here. Maybe I went a little too far there, maybe that's a limit for me. So now I know, I can't go that far. Maybe eventually with practice, I'll be able to go a little further. But right now, this is where I'm at, and I'm not going to harm myself by stretching myself beyond the limits that I have. I see this even with the lamas, as kind and as utterly compassionate as they are, as deep as their bodhicitta and their wisdom is, they still have boundaries. Yeah. I don't know where Tuku Rinpoche lives. Why? Why is that? Instead if everybody knew where he lived, they'd be at his door 24/7, right? Um, uh, when they're teaching in France, for example, and there's, 300 people there. They don't talk to everyone who wants to talk to them. They don't sit there all day and just let people, you know, take advantage of them. Yeah. When they feel like it's time, they get up and they leave, go do something else. That's a boundary, right? So it's not that we can't set boundaries. Even the masters set boundaries because they know they need to protect their energy, protect that they have many other things to do, that they can't just let people take advantage in that way. Otherwise, they won't be able to do all the other work that they have to do, for example. Okay, so we'll just, pardon me, we'll just stop here. Um, Pardon me, and we will do some meditation. Okay, so today I would like to do the what we call the alternating meditation. So I want to begin with just mindfulness of breathing practice for a few minutes, and then we'll do this alternating meditation. So I will explain to you when we get to that part. Okay, so first, mindfulness of breathing. So if you're sitting on the floor or you're sitting on your bed, just cross your legs in whatever way is comfortable for you. If you're sitting in a chair, just make sure your feet are flat on the floor in front of you. All the other instructions are the same. You can have your hands palms down on your legs or resting one on top of the other like this in your lap or with your fingers on top and your thumbs touching like that. Then your back is straight. So this is actually the most important. So you want to make sure your back is straight but not tense. Okay, straight but relaxed. The back of your neck is also straight. So your chin's going to be tucked in a little bit. Arms are relaxed. Your shoulders are back a little bit. So I just roll back my shoulders like that. Mouth is closed but relaxed. Tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. Breathing through the nose. The eyes are half open and looking down a few feet in front of you. The relaxed, lowered gaze. So that's the posture. for mindfulness of breathing. So bring your awareness to the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. So this is going to be the focus. Okay, so let's take a moment just to notice that sensation. Okay, so this is going to be the point of our focus or our concentration. We just want to maintain continuous, relaxed awareness of that sensation. What's happening with the mind is we're just letting the thoughts come and go, right? A thought will arise, dwell, and disappear, replaced by another thought. Related or not, the mind's a crazy thing that will arise, dwell, and disappear in this like continuous chain. Sometimes there'll be little gaps, right? Just allow that to happen while maintaining focus. What's probably going to happen is at some point we will get distracted by one of these thoughts. Okay. And we'll go running after it. That's what we do. We have a super strong habit of that, right? So maybe a thought will arise. Oh, there's still a lot of snow outside. And what you want to do is just be let that go. Another thought, replace it. Or you can label it thinking, come back to the breath. What you want to avoid is running after that thought. Oh, there's a lot of snow still. Oh my God, when is winter gonna end? I can't believe how cold it is. Oh, what about the animals? Oh, we've got somebody coming over to remove the ice on my roof. Oh, how much is that gonna cost? Oh my God, money, blah, 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 blah. All right. At some point, we're gonna realize we got distracted. Even if it's when it's the end of the session, we'll realize, oh, I got totally distracted. That's okay. Just bring your mind back to the breath. That's it. That's the instruction. Okay. So let's start that now. Now you can begin to count the breaths, counting either every in breath or every out breath for a total of 10 breaths. Counting helps us because it helps us to realize more quickly when we've gotten distracted because we will have lost count. So let's say you get to 4 or whatever, and your mind just wanders off into some big storyline. As soon as you realize that, just come back and start again at 1. If you get to 10, just come back, start again at 1. So please begin that now. Now we're going to move into the alternating meditation. Okay. So in this one, we adopt two different postures and we do two different things. So the first thing we do is what we just did, mindfulness breathing practice, except in this case, you want your hands in this posture. Okay. Pardon my weird thumb. Okay, like that in your lap. So hands are like this in your lap. All the things I just described, uh, awareness of the breath. Okay. The other is your hands are palms down on your knees. You're breathing through the mouth and you're looking slightly upward. So if you look all the way, if you look straight ahead and you look all the way up, pick a halfway point between those two things. And here you are resting your mind. Okay. So you're not focusing on the breath like you did before. At the same time, you're not distracted and just letting the mind run all over the place. Just settle the mind, rest the mind in the natural state. And we're going to switch between those two. So I will say switch when it's time to switch, and I'll explain a little bit and then not explain so much so you can just concentrate. All right. So we're going to begin with this posture, focusing on the breath. Okay. So the mouth is closed, the eyes are looking down, breathing through the nose, and the hands in that egg kind of posture. Focus on the breath. Okay. So please begin that now. Which palms down on the knees, breathing through the mouth, looking slightly upward, just resting the mind. Which hands in that posture, looking down, mouth is closed, breathing through the nose, focusing on the breath. Switch. Palms down on the knees, breathing through the mouth, looking slightly upward, resting the mind. Switch. Meditation mudra. Breathing through the nose, eyes slightly downward, focusing on the breath. Switch. Palms down, breathing through the mouth, looking slightly upward, resting on it. in this meditation. And now we're going to do the closing prayers, which I will share with you, but you'll find them and download them if you look at the links in the description box below. One, but I know otherwise people don't have them. So I'll just share my screen with you. Of course, you're not obliged to do these prayers, but please hang on anyway because there's will be some important announcements. Okay. All right. These are long life prayers for our teachers and the Dalai Lama. Today we'll do them in English. In the celestial realm encircled by snow peaks, you are the source of every happiness and benefit. Tenzin Gyatso Avalokiteshvara himself, may your lotus feet remain firm for 100 aeons. Then the one below, Om Swasti in the vast expanse of your fearless wisdom, shine the 100,000 cooling light rays of your all-pervading great love, dispelling the anguish of beings in this degenerate age. O supreme jewel of space, region of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, remain with us continuously, we pray. Om Swasti, through dependent causation and the blessings of the infinity of long life deities, may Pema Wangya, prophesied magical emanation of the Tolkien Sacral, be firm in body, speech, and mind with the king of the sounding drum, Amitabha, and may the great waves of his wishes for the teachings and beings spread out to their ultimate extent. We pray for the good health of the lamas. We pray for their precious lives to be long. We pray for their activities to spread and increase. May we be blessed, never depart from them. Now, the next page, the dedication verse. We say this once in English, once in Tibetan, and the remaining three just in Tibetan, and then the 100-syllable mantra. By this merit, we all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. When the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sonandi tomche sepani, tone ne pedranam panche shin, kegana chi balon trupaye, sipe tsole doa doa shon. May bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may it too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms and primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya, may I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manubalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Tishtadrito Me Bawa Sutokayo Me Bawa Supokayo Me Bawa Anurato Me Bawa Sawasidi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutsame Chitam Shriyam Kuru Ha 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 Bhagavan Savatata Vajramame Mutsa Vajripawa Mahasamaya Sattva. All right, so first I want to say thank you so much for joining us this morning and for watching this video. If you come along later, and I want to make a couple of announcements. Okay, first of all, we have meditation every Saturday. The second Saturday of the month, we have it at the um, Lakewood Public Library on Detroit in Lakewood. But it's also on YouTube that day if you can't make it in person. It will be in a different room than we normally have. It's just a room across the hall. But don't worry about that. There'll be signs and everything for you. The other is that 3 days a month we do Buddha sadhana practice. It's really nice practice, beautiful. It only takes half an hour. The next one is the 17th of February. So that will be at, uh, I don't know when, at 5 o'clock? No, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock p.m. No, 6 to 6:30. And then we'll probably do the same thing next day because it's Losar, the New Year. Those of you who do soak, that will be this Tuesday at 6:30. Because there's the transmission, we'll just do it after the transmission. We'll take like a little 5-minute break, and then we'll get into the soak. Jimmy Kinstrom Shea is giving transmissions every day through the 12th of February. Um, it usually lasts about an hour, hour and a half. It starts at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. If you want to know about that, send me an email and I'll send you the information. What else? We have classes on offer. Wednesday is Walking the Spiritual Path. Session 4 will start sometime in March. And then after that, we'll start a class called Women of Wisdom. Um, if you can make a donation, we really, really appreciate it. We need that money. So please, to help us continue to offer things like this for free, we do need some donations. So you can find links for that below. Please like this video and comment and subscribe. The reason I'm asking you to do that is because it helps drive traffic here, and we have very low count for subscribers and stuff. So it would just be super helpful if you could do that. It's very easy. Just hit that like button, make a little comment, whatever, it doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be much, just you can write thanks or anything. It just shows up as a comment and it helps to bring people here. Sign up for the newsletter. That's super important. Again, the links below that will help you to be aware of upcoming events the quickest. We do the newsletter sometimes before we can get around to the website. So that's your way to register for things. Do have a Kempo who will giving us teachings in May, and I will um, let you know about that as soon as I get all the details. The last thing I want to say is I was fostering this dog. Her name is Ginger. She's currently at the Cuyahoga County Animal Shelter in Valley View, just off Canal, near Canal and Rockside. So I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures of her. Her name is Ginger Snap. She's very, very cute. She's a good girl. You can see like, she's had a bit of a hard life. She's got a lot of scars and things on her, but she's super sweet, very affectionate, loves her own reflection. Um, she's very, very nice, So if you want to adopt her, I highly recommend it. She's a great dog. And as I said, she's at the shelter there. So maybe you can't take her, but maybe you know somebody who can. Please consider that. Here's her when I was trying to meditate. She just can't get enough of human touch. She's just adorable. So, anyway, please think about her. And if you don't want to adopt her, maybe, as I said, you know somebody who does, and you could, share that information. If you go to the Cuyahoga County Animal Shelter um, website, you can see pictures of all the different dogs they have available for adoption. So, once again, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and see you soon. Okay, bye.